Hello there, this is Being God's Obedient Servant channel. Today our lesson is going to be Deuteronomy chapters 6 through 8. If you're new to this channel, this is a Bible study channel, and I do Bible study out of the King James Version. So, last time we left off, Moses was speaking to the people about God's commandments before they crossed the Jordan into the Promised Land, and so there's going to still be a little bit more of that here, 6 to 8. It's going to be pretty much straightforward reading, but there's stuff in here that apply to us today. And of course there's some stuff in here that's just for the Israelites only, but as I said, no, unless we actually read it and study it, we're not going to know these things. So let's go ahead and jump right on in here. Chapter 6, verse 1. Now these are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which the Lord your God commanded to teach you, that ye might do them in the land whither ye go to possess it, that thou mightest fear the Lord thy God, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee, thou and thy son's son, all the days of thy life, and that thy days may be prolonged. So a quick little pause here on that. Now, we're still commanded to keep God's commandments. Jesus even says this, we're also to keep Jesus' commandments as well. But the thing is, see, now we're under grace instead of the law. So here's the difference. We are still to fear the Lord, but also love the Lord, and know that he loves us. And, it's, in these times, with the with the commandment to the Israelites, if you broke the commandments, you were punished immediately. But now under grace, we're not. We're given a chance to repent and do right and apologize and ask the Lord for forgiveness, and also to reconcile with those we've done wrong. So, but yeah, we're still to keep the commandments. As it bothers me so much to go to some churches in America today, and also see the ones on on the internet, or on whatever the old TV channels and stuff type were. They like to tickle the ear. I just saw one too where somebody posted on Facebook talking about how it was just saying the wrong stuff about it went along the lines of, the guy preaching was trying to say that men are support to pretty much obey their wives. There's a support their wives and support the women and what God calls them to do, and blah 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 and stuff like that. And that is not so. It's like God calls men to do things, and the woman's job is to support her husband. That's the primary commandment to all women. But this guy's trying to tickle the ear of women today to say, hey, you men, you got to obey us. You got to keep, got to be good to us, this, that, and the other. But not once saying that the woman had to be good to the man. Now, one part he got right was God does command that men are to love, honor, and cherish their wives. But the part he forgot to say was, for a good woman is a gift. A good woman. But he failed to say what God commands a man to do with a cantankerous woman. So, which God commands a woman of strife, causing problems, arguments, stuff of that nature. God commands the man to divorce her and cast her out, which means let the world destroy, let the world have her, because she's of the world. So we're still commanded to follow God's rules today. We're not to add to or take away from the word. But, and the part now is like they try to say all this other things other than what God commands. It's like, oh, you don't have to obey any of this stuff because that's Old Testament. We're in New Testament. And like I always teach, try to explain to people, Jesus taught from the Old Testament. So the Old Testament matters greatly, especially the parts that apply to everybody. Now, of course, there's some parts where it's the law that is for the Israelites only, but everything else applies to everybody worldwide. But, so let's continue on here. Started going a little rant there. I got to catch myself. Just started this. So, verse 3. Hear therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with thee, and that ye may increase mightily, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee, in the land that floweth with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. Which, of course, is the beginning of the 10 Commandments, which we're still under today. Verse 6. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart. Now, as I said, a lot of this stuff is for us today, and this stuff is supposed to be in our heart. But I said, some of this stuff is just specifically for the Israelites. So through here, I'm going to try to make sure I remember to tell which parts are us and which parts are them. But for the most part, you'll be able to tell. It's kind of like, as I said, a lot of it's kind of self-explanatory if you study it. Let's continue on verse 7. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. So, of course, that still applies to us today, that we are to teach our children about God, God's commandments, God's ways, and what God expects of us. And, we're supposed to live it. So it's, and the man of the house is to teach everybody that sits in their house. Everybody. Because, it's in the Bible here. I can't remember if we already went over it or if it's coming up, but it does say a man will be judged on what he allows to happen in his household, in his kingdom, which, man's house is his castle. That's, every man has his own little, again, it kind of says kingdom, but it all, pretty much means his household and what he has control over. It says the man will be the father of the children, the husband of the wife. He is the one that's going to be held accountable. And men need to pay attention, because them always trying to keep the peace with a worldly woman while you're trying to be godly, and letting a woman do whatever in the house, God's not going to be happy about that you're not man enough to step up and do what's right as God commands. And if you're a woman out there hearing this and getting upset, then you clearly are not walking with God, because, God has his commandments for you. And all of us are, one of our things that we're supposed to be on this earth is doing what pleases the Lord. Not ourselves, not the world, God. And the same thing goes with Jesus. We're to do things that please Jesus as well. So, let's continue on verse 8. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. Now, this part, I don't know if you have to do this today. I don't think. From my understanding, Jesus never reemphasizes on this, because most of these statutes right here, this is going into the law for they're fixing to go into the land that thou shalt possess. And this is to also represent the part where they did the Passover, where they had to spread the blood upon the doorpost and everything. The sides of the door and everything. So it kind of goes along for that. That's why this is like, okay, you did that to get, to have the Passover. Now you also to do this, to still represent that. Let's continue on verse 10. And it shall be, when the Lord thy God shall have brought thee into the land which he sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give thee great and goodly cities, which thou buildest not, and houses full of all good things which thou fillest not, and wells digged which thou diggest not, vineyards and olive trees which thou plantest not, when thou shalt have eaten and be full. Then beware lest thou forget the Lord which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. Thou shalt fear the Lord thy God, and serve him, and shalt swear by his name. Ye shall not go after other gods of the people which are round about you. For the Lord thy God is a jealous God among you, lest the anger of the Lord thy God be kindled against thee, and destroy thee from off the face of the earth. Now that still pertains to us today. So you got to look at the problems America's having today. God blessed America because America was built originally by majority Christians, and the most of the country followed God. And then comes the feminist movement, the sexual revolution, and all this other stuff, and people quit following God, and now we're having severe problems in our lands. We have no peace. We are divided big time, and that's because God is turning his back on America, because America first turned its back on him. And forgot, because a lot of Americans today think we're too big to fail. That's bull. We will fail if we don't live as God commands. Now, there's a lot of people still trying to be good, but they're no longer reading the Word and remembering what God commands us. And as God says, he is a jealous God. And what is putting something before God that makes it a false idol? You shall have not go after other gods. If you focus on money more than godliness, then money is your God. Stuff of that nature. If you focus on sports more than God, then sports is your God. If your job is more important to you than God, then your job is your God. Your house, any possessions, all this other stuff. God says he is above everything in our lives, and he commands it. And we must remember this and live this way. So continue on. Verse 16. Ye shall not tempt the Lord your God as ye tempted him in Massah. Well, of course, we weren't in Massah. This was the Israelites. But also, we are not to tempt God. So that part's for us, except the second part of that's not. That's for the Israelites. 17. Ye shall diligently keep the commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he hath commanded thee. Of course, this is for everybody, not just the Israelites. And thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord, that it may be well with thee, and that thou mayest go in and possess the good land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers. Now, this is for us and the Israelites. Part of it specifically, because the Lord. A good land could be the house and land you've been saving up for to have your own home. God's, if you serve God and God helps you get that home, blesses you and everything else in your life. Now, just because you may not have got the house you wanted, you're still to be happy with the one that you got, because you could have none at all. But, as I said, other than the swearing unto thy father's part, we're to do right in the eyes of God. We're to do well. Do things to be well. Because, God will help you possess a home and land if it's his will for you. So as I said, you have to read these things and study them to know which parts are for you and which parts are not. And see, for a lot of these commandments, it's mostly for the men, because the men are supposed to be leading the family. And why is it not for the woman? Because the woman is the man, to become one flesh. And the woman's job is to support her husband. As long as she's supporting her husband and her husband serving the Lord, she herself is also serving the Lord through her husband. This is how things are supposed to be. The Bible speaks of this. As we study through, you're going to see it more and more. Let's continue on. Verse 19. To cast out all thine enemies from before thee, as the Lord has spoken. Okay, so yeah, God can cast out your enemies before you, even in this land today, as long as you serve Him. But some bad people are going to be in your life to help test you, to help humble you. And sometimes they're there for you to witness to. You may not like them, but God says we're to love all. And we're to share the gospel with all. And, well, as I said, a lot of this is for us today, and parts of it is, and some of it isn't. Verse 20. And when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What mean the testimonies and the statutes and the judgments which the Lord our God hath commanded you? Then thou shalt say unto thy son, We were Pharaoh's bondmen in Egypt, and the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And the Lord showed signs and wonders, great and sore, upon Egypt, upon Pharaoh, and upon all his household before our eyes. And he brought us out from thence, that he might bring us in, to give us the land which he sware unto our fathers. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is this day. And it shall be our righteousness, if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God, as he hath commanded us. Chapter 7. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land, whether thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. Now, in another part, I was sitting there saying about how I was wrong when I was saying that, that some may be spared, but I tend to forget that when God brings judgment upon an area, he will destroy all in the area, even the children. And I remembered that one of the main teachings of the Israelites is God wanted them to keep their bloodlines pure. They're not supposed to take wives from, other nations. They're not supposed to give their, like it says here, not to give their daughters unto other sons of other nations, because God wants all of them to live under his rule. And so I was wrong in the other part I was talking about. And it's just the same like, when Noah built the ark, there was children then that drowned, that, wasn't saved, but it was the world being brought under judgment. This land is being brought under judgment, all the Canaanites and everything in it, because they were making children pass through fire. And like the other parts of the Bible teaches us is the things that we do against God affects more than just us. It can affect, our children and our children's children. And it can affect, way down the line, causing problems. But also, as here, the promise to Abraham and stuff, this was a promise made that it was blessing the sons and the sons of the sons and the son, many generations afterwards. Now these, the promises are being fulfilled to Abraham that is long past, hundreds of years already passed. But, God will keep his promise to us. But yeah, so I just wanted to apologize for getting the other part wrong in that, because I forgot about this land being brought under judgment. And so, in these times, it was still a very brutal way of life. There's a lot of studying been done about these times, because these aren't civilized times like they are here today. Nothing of the same. It's very brutal times. And one thing God is trying to do for the whole land is to get everyone else, through all the other nations that are worshiping a false god, the false god stuff like the Canaanites, I think you had Baal, and that was a false god. There's a couple other ones, I can't remember their names right now, but still. The nation that's the greatest, everyone else around says their God must be the real God, and that's who they'll follow. As it's already said in here that the Israelites are the smallest amongst all of them, against all the lands that he've already brought them against, that they were the smallest amount of people. But God's on their side fighting for them. And so this is how, he's given the land to the Israelites. They're going to become an even greater nation. But of course, we know throughout, from history that they did not stay following God, and they lost their land for quite some time before it was given back to them. I think it was 1948 is when the prophecy had been fulfilled that they will become a nation within a day. That was from New Testament. So, which that has come to pass already, but they were been cast into slavery multiple times because they walked away from God. They lost their land many times for walking away from God. That's why I tell other people, it's like, if God's going to do this to his chosen people, America stands no chance if we don't stay with God. So, this is why we got to spread the gospel. So, let's continue on here. Verse 4. For they will turn away thy son from following me, and they may serve other gods, so will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. Now, pay attention to this part real quick. We're very close here as well. Because one of the commandments of the father of the children is to find suitable husbands for their daughters and to raise their sons accordingly. Now, when you find a husband for your daughter, and help your sons learn to choose wise women to make their wives. It's the same thing. Like, you got to teach them correctly and help them so that whomever they're married to don't, start turning them away from following God. It happens a lot more than you know. It's just. And some people know exactly what I'm talking about. Some people may not. But there's a lot of people out there that knows exactly what I'm talking about today. So, let's continue on here. Verse 5. But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars, and break down their images, and cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you, because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn to your fathers, hath the Lord brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh king of Egypt. Now therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, the faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that loved him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. and repayeth them that hate him to their face to destroy them. He will not be slack to him that hateth him. He will repay him to his face. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them. Now, of course, that part, judgments, is not for us. We are to not judge sinners. That's God's job. Us as Christians today under Jesus, we are to know a tree by the fruit it bears. But mostly, Jesus has this teaching where it says, if you have 100 and one starts going astray, you leave the 99 and go after the one that's being lost. And sometimes you got to tell them, hey, you're not living godly, you're not doing right. And some people says, you're not supposed to judge me. It's like, I'm not judging you, I'm showing you facts. You claim to be a Christian, but you're not living it, and here's why, bum, bum, bum. This is why we're to know the word so we can share it with others, especially those that are lost or that are becoming lost again. Because the Bible does say that you can, your name can be blotted out of the book of life. So even though you were saved and given the Holy Spirit, you can lose it all by turning back to the world and turning your back against God. This can happen. So you have to remember this. As I said, there's lots of rules in the Bible, and we're to do our best we can to live as godly as we possibly can, but God does not expect us to be perfect. By far, God does not expect it whatsoever. Mostly the laws that let us know how much we can't. It's to show us that by works alone, we will never get into heaven or into the promised land by works alone. We have to do it through grace because we fail all the time. But the whole main thing is we're still supposed to try. So anyways, continue on, verse 12. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if ye hearken to these judgments, and keep and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. And he will love thee and bless thee and multiply thee. He will also bless the fruit of thy womb and the fruit of thy land, thy corn and thy wine and thine oil, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep, in the land which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee. Thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be male or female barren among you or among your cattle. And the Lord will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt which thou knowest upon thee, but will lay them upon all them that hate thee. And thou shalt consume all the people which the Lord thy God shall deliver thee. Thine eye shall have no pity upon them, neither shalt thou serve their gods, for that will be a snare unto thee. If thou shalt say in thine heart, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? Thou shalt not be afraid of them, but shalt well remember what the Lord thy God did unto Pharaoh and unto all Egypt. The great temptations which thine eyes saw, and the signs and the wonders, and the mighty hand, and the stretched out arm, whereby the Lord thy God brought thee out, so shall the Lord thy God do unto all the people of whom thou art afraid. Moreover, the Lord thy God will send the hornet among them until they that are left and hide themselves from thee be destroyed. Thou shalt not be affrighted at them, for the Lord thy God is among you, a mighty God and terrible. And the Lord thy God will put out those nations before thee by little and little, thou mayest not consume them at once, lest the beast of the field increase upon thee. But the Lord thy God shall deliver them unto thee, and shall destroy them with a mighty destruction until they be destroyed. And he shall deliver their kings into thine hand, and thou shalt destroy their name from under heaven. There shall no man be able to stand before thee until thou have destroyed them. The graven images of their gods shall ye burn with fire. Thou shalt not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared therein, for it is an abomination to the Lord thy God. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it. But thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. Now this kind of goes towards us as well today, which is the teaching says, be careful of what you allow to enter your kingdom. This is kind of a lesson in that. We're not to worship gold and silver. We're not to desire it and all this other. I mean, we do need money to make ends meet today. To live in this civilized society today, we have to have a job. We have to have an income. We have to do stuff to be able to live. We don't have farmlands today. Like this, these times here, where we just, work a farm, people get together, they make fabric, they make clothes and stuff like that, then everybody just lives. It's like today is a totally different time in that aspect, and God knows this. It's like, we know we need money, but we're not to worship it. We're not to desire it, But also we have to watch out other things that we allow to enter our homes, especially that stuff which, can be music. A lot of people listen to a lot of types of music today, and they think it's okay and this, that, and the other, and they don't realize that it can be bringing problems into your home because it speaks of ungodly things, stuff that's perverse and anything like that. Some people say, well, that's no big deal, I don't have no problem with it. You may not, but other people in your house may. And so you got to be careful, especially the parents, because your children are watching you. And there's a song saying, it's called Walk a Little Straighter. And it talks about a son talking to his dad, walk a little straighter. You're leading me, because his dad was an alcoholic. So I said, you got to be careful what you're doing in front of your children and stuff of that nature, because they watch everything you do and they want to mimic you. This is why we are commanded to live godly lives, especially in front of our children. And so, yeah. There it is in a nutshell. Let's continue on here. Chapter 8. All the commandments which I command thee this day shall ye observe to do, that ye may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger, and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. Thy raiment waxed not old upon thee, neither did thy foot swell these 40 years. Stuff I was talking about before, where their clothes didn't wear out, their shoes didn't wear out, nothing else wore out for 40 years. That was a miracle all on its own. That they needed a lot more time and places and stuff, and a lot more equipment to be able to make fabric, to make clothes, and all this other stuff. And God made it to where they didn't have to worry about that stuff for 40 years. It's like, That would be a great Levi commercial if that was true for them, but it's not. But yeah, continue on, verse 5. Thou shalt also consider in thine heart that as a man chasteth his son, chasteneth his son, so the Lord thy God chasteneth thee. It's punish is what that's meaning. Like, the man is to discipline his children, his son, so the Lord thy God will also discipline you as needed. So you have to keep that in mind as well. But you also have to know that in the time of the law, it was, the people thought if somebody had a hard life, then they were a sinner. And that's, because of stuff like this, that's what they believed it from. And it wasn't always so. Like even today, some people have a hard life, a lot harder than others. And it isn't because God isn't with them. It's just God has a different path for them. And, this is why it's also said, it's got to be under God's will. Because, the path he has for you is not the path he has for someone else. So their life's going to be different than yours. Now, if you've been blessed more than other people, God says that if you have been blessed, you're to help those who haven't been. But also, you're not to support wickedness. So this is where you have a slippery slope. You got to watch out, especially these so-called, greedy TV evangelists, always saying, "Give me money, 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 money." And they're misleading the people by just tickling of the ear. You got to watch out, because if you're giving tithing to a church that is not doing as Jesus commands a church to be, and you know it, then God can charge you for supporting wickedness. So you have to watch out. Yeah, this is why we are to study the Word and study everything around our lives, so we know. As the Bible always teaches, you'll know a tree by the fruit it bears. Always pay attention to the tree. That's other people, businesses, churches, all this. You kind of go. So, verse 6. Therefore thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways and to fear him. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of the valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive, and honey, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness, thou shalt not lack anything in it, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig brass. So of course, these people today, they know how to make brass, forge brass and iron. So, but yeah. So of course, like here in America, when we were started out and everything else, everything we needed, still today, everything we need to support ourselves is in this land. A land flowing with milk and honey. Everything we need. But yet our government chooses to not use our land, but import everything, making us dependent upon other nations. Doesn't make any sense, really. Because it takes away our good jobs and this, that, and the other, and it helps create the divide. And why is our government doing this? Because our government is no longer following God. Our government's following Satan. So, and then both parties are kind of doing this. If they really had the people in mind, we wouldn't have any problems, and we wouldn't be, told that we can't pray in school or anything like that. But, as I said, we have, people leading this country today that They call themselves godly, but they clearly aren't. Pay attention to the tree. Pay attention to the fruit that tree's providing. As I said, the Bible always teaches that. Continue on, verse 10. When thou hast eaten and art full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land which he hath given thee. Beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God, and not keeping his commandments and his judgments and his statutes which I command thee this day, lest when thou hast eaten and art full, and hast built goodly houses and dwelt therein, and when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, and all that thou hast is multiplied, then thine heart be lifted up, and thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the land of Egypt from the house of bondage. So here, other than the judgment part, this even goes to us today. Watch out in life that we not forget who is in charge, who God is in our lives. Now it's like here in the other part is, in verse 14 part, it's this happens to the Israelites a few times. It's happening in America today. Times are so good that the people forget about who brought the good times. God. Now everybody's turning their back on God, and God's having to turn his back on the country, which is going to bring hard times to bring the people back to God. It's like the teachings is, hard times create strong men, strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. It's the same cycle. This is why we're to always teach our children these things, and make sure our children teach their children these things of godliness, so that we don't forget. Or what's going on today happens. Continue on here, verse 15. Who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions, and drought, where there was no water? Who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint? Who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee, and that he might prove thee, to do thee good in thy latter end? And thou say in thine heart, my power and the might of mine hand hath gotten me this wealth. But thou shalt remember the Lord thy God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he sware unto thy fathers, as it is this day. Now here's this part, like, where it's this covenant which he sware unto thy fathers. So you got to remember that we're under Jesus. Jesus is an Israelite. He came from the womb of Mary, which is a descendant of David. So we're born again under Jesus. So it said a lot of this stuff, we're that's our Father. Jesus is our Father. That's how we're grafted into the Israelites. So, when people say, well, we're under New Testament, we're Christians, we ain't got nothing to do with Old Testament, this is the part people tend to forget, that we're just a branch that's grafted in. We're not a whole new tree. We're part of the Israelite tree. We're just grafted in through Jesus. So you got to always remember that these promises come to us as well, because it's kind of like we're not Israelites, but we're honorary Israelites in a way. So, but as I said, things change with Jesus, but it also changed for the Israelites. But they denied Jesus. This is when Jesus went out towards the uncircumcised, which is why it's no longer a law that you have to be circumcised to follow God. But anyways, continue on here. Verse 19. And it shall be, if thou do at all forget the Lord thy God, and walk after other gods, and serve them, and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish, as the nations which the Lord destroyeth before your face, so shall ye perish, because ye would not be obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God. This is the end of the lesson, of course, here. And this is how I'm saying that America is suffering today. And other nations that used to follow God and now walk away from God, God's allowing these lands to destroy themselves. God's not doing it, we're doing it ourselves. And so, as I said, like, a lot of this stuff is, this is for us today. Some parts isn't, but a lot of it is. A lot of the Old Testament is for everybody. That's, Jesus only taught from it. But, as I said, this is the end of that, of the lesson today. So, I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Hopefully, those who hear this learn from it, understand it, and, hopefully it encourages you to read the Bible even more. This is the main thing, is like, because God wants everybody to learn His Word so He can speak to you directly and show you which, what He wants you to do in this life. Like the main thing right now that I can see that most Christians are to do in America today, it isn't a job of building cars or infrastructure or any of that. Right now, our main thing is to help get this nation back to God, to help make sure we elect godly people to lead this nation. And hopefully we can get back on the pathway of helping the rest of the world. See that as when God's leading you, God strengthens you and makes you a great nation. Without God, we're falling apart. The rest of the world is laughing at us now because they hated us before because we followed God. And we were blessed, and everyone hated us because we were able to do so much. We helped, Europe deal with 2 world wars. We helped Europe against the Nazis while we also were fighting against the Japanese who attacked us in Pearl Harbor. We had 2 wars at one time, and we won both of them. This is also during a time when the most of the nation still followed God. And God commands us, we're to help the weaker. We're to help the innocent. A lot of people now are so selfish, they don't want to help nobody but themselves. And as Bruce Willis said in Armageddon, way wrong answer. That's one of my favorite sayings. Way wrong answer. But I'm going to go ahead and end this lesson here. So I'm going to go ahead and say a quick prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for your lessons. Thank you for your teachings. And thank you for your blessings. And God, please help other people hear this message, read these words of yours, and understand what's going on. Please help America and the rest of the world possibly, get godly leaders again. But the more time's going by, I know from reading the Bible that, the end times are coming near, and it says that hard times are going to get stronger. So, there is one nation that is supposed to side with Israel in the end times when Jesus returns. And Jesus, I pray thee that let that be America. And which means that, help America get back to being godly again. It'd be such a great blessing to see. But as your word teaches, and as we're commanded, not my will be done, but thy will be done. But in Jesus' name, I pray these things. Amen. So, as I said, I'm ending this study here. And hope you'll have a good, blessed week. But we'll go ahead. Until next time, keep keep your family in prayers. Keep yourself in prayers. Pray for your co-workers. Pray for the world. Because we're all on this planet together. And we're all going to be judged by the same God one day. And those that are under Jesus, well, we're going to be in the book of life. And those who aren't, it's going to be a sad day for them. I pray they get right with God first. So until next time, God bless, good night, and goodbye.